this is Victor Steven from Easy Ticket. He's from Lagos, Nigeria. He's been in software development for 6 years, and he works with Go, JavaScript, and PHP. His talk would be applying proper security practices with GWT, and his charity of choice is Cavalry Ministries. He will be showing the pre-recorded talk because of internet issues. But this will work as normal beside that. So if you want to introduce a bit of your talk, Victor.
Yeah, so thank you for joining this talk. In this talk, I'm going to be showing you how you can apply proper security practices using JWT in your application. So I hope you enjoy it. Yeah.
Okay, so now we will show it. Thank you.
Hi, welcome everybody to my talk today. I'm going to be discussing how you can apply proper security practices while using JWT. So my name is Victor Steven, and I'm privileged to be one of the speakers for this event. So let's get to this about me, my GitHub repository, and my Twitter handle. So I wrote about JWT some while ago with in Nesmo Developers Portal program. The same idea I'm about sharing with you here, so I hope you enjoy it. These are the key takeaways for the talk. The first one is I'm going to show you how you can apply JWT the best way. So, in my opinion, the best way, how you can implement proper security practices which can help you avoid major loopholes in your application. Also, how you can, using JWT in your application can help save you a lot of resources. Maybe you want to use, other methods of authentication. I consider JW very cheap to use and very easy also to implement. So I'm going to be showing you all this as we progress in the course of this talk. So stay tuned. Now, these are some of the questions people tend to ask why using JWT. One of them is, does a JWT invalidate immediately after user logs out of an application? I had this question too. I asked the question and I didn't find the answers on time. So I'm glad I did finally, and I'll be showing what I found out. The next one is, how can a JWT be using multiple devices? Maybe I have my iPhone, or I'm using my Mac, or I'm using another device. So to connect to this, and I use JWT independently. The next one is, what happens when a JWT expires before a user is about to make a request? Let's say you're about to create a blog post in my website, and upon doing that, before doing that, your token expires. What happens? Will your creation be successful, or it will be declined? So all these things you get to know as we progress in the talk. Now, these are some of the bad practices I use by creating JWT. One of which is a JWT is created without expiration. So it's very easy to jump into the bandwagon of creating JWTs, and you don't know what to do with it after. You don't know how to invalidate it. You don't know how to to make it invalid after it is at a particular time, not really after it expires. So the next point is a JWT is only invalidated when it expires, right? So in my application before, what I need to do is, after creating the JWT, the only time it is revoked, it is when the expiration time is reached. So I can show you how you can invalidate a JWT at will, like whenever you want to, without waiting for the expiration time. So this is one of the bad practices if you are using JWT and you're still doing this. Another is, a JWT is still active even while the authenticated user logs out. So from the above two explanations, you could see that if you are creating JWT this way, the token will not be expired even after the user is not authenticated anymore. So we need to look for a way how make the token expire after, not really expire, how we can invalidate the token when requests like logout are performed. Then the last is for the talk is a JWT signing secret is exposed in the code. You don't have to expose the signing secret you use while creating the token. Now, I'm going to show you some of the good practices you could apply while creating JWTs. One of which is creating a JWT with a short expiration time. This actually helps you reduce the risk of your token being hijacked and a hacker, and so on and so forth. A JWT should be revoked at will. This is one of the key stuff that many people don't like about JWT, which is it only gets revoked when it expires by itself. But I can show you how you can render a JWT useless. That is revoking it whenever you want to. So the next one is save JWT metadata in. So we can use other alternative aside Redis for the talk. We can choose. I will show you the reasons why we should use Redis when saving metadata. Now, the term metadata, I'm going to explain it as we progress so that you properly understand what I'm trying to say. The next one is do not save a JWT in not really a relational database. This can be a database, a NoSQL database like MongoDB, or a relational database like Postgres or MySQL, any of them. So even Redis itself, you should not save your JWT in any of these. Rather, you should save the metadata as I specified here. So as we progress, I'm going to tell you what the metadata is and how you could save it in Redis. Good. So the token metadata is this. I chose the user's ID and a UUID. Now, a UUID is a randomly generated string that is unique. Take note of the unique is unique, So I now use the UUID. So these are the two things that make up the metadata. Now, this metadata is attached to the JWT claims while creating it. So as we progress, we're going to see where we created JWT and how we use the user's ID and the UUID as claims. So let's see how what the talk really covers in terms of applying JWT. First, we're going to create two token pairs. The first is the access token, then the second is the refresh token. So the access token is a token that have a short lifespan, while the refresh token have a longer lifespan. So the next one is we're going to store the JWT metadata, that is the user's ID and the UUID in Redis. Then we are going to extract the JWT and validate the metadata. Then create new pairs of long-lived and short-lived tokens. This is when we are refreshing the token. Then we're going to delete the metadata of a JWT from Redis, during requests like logout and and so on and so forth. So let's get to it. Redis. I mentioned that we are using Redis for this talk. So the question is, why use Redis? Why are we using Redis instead of any other databases out there? Now, these are some of the reasons why I want to use Redis. The first one is in-memory data storage. Redis store data in memory, so it does not need any hard disks or any disks to store its data, store it in memory. The second is data can be accessed in microseconds. So I can access data in microseconds, right? So it's generally very fast. Then the next one is better application performance. So on successful, let me give you this instance. If you're using, let's say, an opaque token in your application, so when an authenticator request is made, you might need to check that token against the user that made it in your Postgres database or your MongoDB or whatever you're using. So you can lookup time can be faster if you use Redis. If you just check the metadata in Redis, and authenticate the user immediately. So our applications will be generally faster using Redis for checking a user if he's valid or not. Then another key concept about Redis is key expiration. Redis have this feature that help you expire documents if you specify an expiration time. Now, since we are dealing with JWT, and since we'll be creating some JWTs that have expiration time, Redis is well suited for the job because it can help us safe tokens that have expiration time on them. So these are just a few of the reasons why I chose Redis, or why I am advocating Redis for you in case you are using JWT. Good. So let's look at some code examples now. Code examples. The first one is, let's say I can create a JWT. So this is the function that creates JWT. It's called create token. So here you can see we have, let me point out some few things here. The first one is we added, we are creating two tokens here actually. The first one is the access token. You can see here. We gave it 15 minutes of expiration, so it expires after 15 minutes. Then this is where we generated the UID using the helper package here. So we generated the UID here. Then most importantly, we attached the access UID that we just generated here and the user's ID as claims to this token. You can observe this struct we use here. You're going to see it in the next slide when it's explained, in the next two slides rather. So here we set the expiration time of the access token here. And one of the important things here is we got the access secret from our environmental variable, or whatever you might be using to save your secrets. All right. So this is the continuation of the function where we have where we created the refresh token, right? So we set the expiration time to be 1 week. It expires after 7 days, because this refresh token is not used for authenticated requests. It is just there to help us whenever our access token expires to create new pairs of access and refresh tokens, right? All right, so we have we attach the UID and the user's ID, then the expiration of it. Then we use the different secrets for the refresh token, as you can see here. All right. So let's talk about the struct we use. Remember, I showed you this struct. You can see. Let's go back to the former slide. Yeah, this one. So let's see the contents of this struct. It has the access token, it has the refresh token, it has the UID of the access token and that of the refresh token. Then it has the expiration time of both the access and the refresh token. So this helps us to, rather than passing having multiple returns, we just have all the returns in one struct, right? All right, so let's see what happens when a token is created. Remember, we created the token here. This function is the one that helps us create a token. Now, when this token is created, what do we do after then? So one of the first things we'll do is we have to save this where Redis comes in now. We have to save the access, the metadata of the access and the refresh tokens in Redis. So for we to do that, you can see here we specified, we have the access expiration time and the refresh expiration time, right? Then this is the access token, that is the UID of the access token and the user's ID, then the expiration time, the UID of the refresh token, the user's ID, and the expiration time. So these are the things we save in our Redis store. Remember, we said the access token expires after 15 minutes and the refresh token expires after 1 week, right? So let's check how we can perform authenticated requests. Now, thus far, what we've done is we have a function that helps us generate JWTs. Then we have another one that helps us save our JWTs generated in Redis. That is the metadata, not the token itself. Now, with this, we can start performing authenticated requests, right? Now, let's see how we can do that. The first thing we'll do is we have to extract the token. We'll get a token from the request data. Mind you, this might be in your handler, or can have a dedicated package where you put this. So we get the token from the header. After getting the token, next thing we'll do is we have another function that verifies the token. Now remember, we are sending only the access token in this request, so we are checking the access secret, right? So we verify if the token is valid. Upon validation of the token, also you could observe this, we call the extract token here. We just have to differentiate this into different functions rather than having everything in just one, So the first function is this again. Then the second one is verify token, where we call the extract token here. Yeah, so let me point this to you. Where is it? Okay, it will be in the next slide. I wanted to show you how we get the metadata that we get from the token, that is the UUID and the user's ID. So I decided to create a different structure instead of using the former one I showed you. So this is simpler since we just need two to the UUID and the user's ID. So the access detail, let's see how we can use it in the next slide here. Now, this is another function, another helper function that helps us now extract the claims. When I say the claims, I mean the access UUID and the user's ID from the token. So when we got the claims from here, that's what this function helps us do. So we return it to the caller. Then the next one is actually the function that now helps us. This function that now helps us. We call the verify token here and the get metadata here. So what this helps us do is, as you can see, we define the verify token function before now, and the get metadata. So we verify the token, we got the metadata, and we return it to the caller. So this is the step of getting the token from the request, verifying the token, then returning the token back to whoever that needs it. Having said that, let's see how we can. The last thing to do about the token is, remember I said if you are using an unpacked token, you can now check this token, your token, against your database to see if the user making this request is valid or not. In our case, we are checking it in Redis. You can see here we are querying our Redis client, which is, I said earlier, generally faster and makes our application very fast. So we query our Redis client here. You can see. Then check if we passed in the UUID. It returns a string and an error. This is a string, then it's an error. So we passed in the UUID that we are concerned about, that we have extracted previously here. Let me show you. We passed in this UUID. Where is it? This one. So we're passing this UUID. Remember we called it here. So here contains the UUID and the user's ID, this variable here. So that's what we passed here, the UUID. Then if the metadata is still found in Redis, we will return a variable response that is the user's ID. If not, we'll flag off that yes, an error, maybe unauthorized or something. All right, so this is a summary of the authentication we have. So the first thing we did was we extracted the JWT. The second thing was we verified it. Then the next one was we checked, get the metadata from the JWT claims. When we got the metadata, we now looked up the metadata in Redis for validity. Then after all this is done, you can now safely use if successful, that the user is authenticated, then you can perform any request you want to do with the user. All right. So that's about creating a JWT. You just need to make authenticated requests, right? So you can see that everything is so seamless, and I consider it more secured, more faster, and I consider it best practice. So let's see how we can invalidate JWTs. How do you invalidate a JWT? So one of the first things we will need to do is we'll need to check the scenarios where a JWT can be invalidated. One of the first I think is during logout, when a user logs out from your application, right? You should invalidate immediately. The second one is during password reset. So during logout and during password reset, that's when you can invalidate JWTs. Not really that's the only scenarios. There are so many other things maybe you have in your application that will make you revoke users' authentication. So let's look at how we can do this. During logout, let's see a function that we can call that can help us remove the access and the refresh tokens. Now, in the case of logout or reset password or any other related stuff, revoking the user's JWT, we need to delete both the access and the user's token created for the user per device. Now, this is the function that helps us remove the metadata from our Redis store. As you can see here, we passed in the access details struct, then we deleted the access token, that is the access UUID and the user's ID that was saved in Redis. Then we did the same thing for the refresh token here. So upon deletion, if any other request wants to be performed on behalf of this user, we always need to query our Redis store. So if the metadata is not found, that request is not possible. Yes, the JWT is still there. Yes, the expiration time has not reached, but we have invalidated the JWT because we can't use it to make any other further requests on behalf of this user, because we've deleted the metadata that is used to create that JWT. I don't know if I make sense. Did I? All right. So let's look at refresh tokens. Refresh tokens. Let's look. So this is the flow how you can refresh in JWT. Remember, the essence of the refresh token we created earlier is to create new panes of access and refresh token. You know, we asked a question while we started that what if the user was about to make an authenticated request and the access token expires? What happens? So this is what happens. We are going to send the refresh token. When we discover that the access token have expired, we send the refresh token, to the server, then to generate new pairs of access and refresh token. So this happens on the fly that the user might not even know about it. So it improves users' experience a lot. So if the refresh token have not expired, right, this is possible. So the user does not need to relog in again, right? So these are some of the things you note about we applying the refresh token. The first one is get the JWT refresh token from the request body, right? Then verify the refresh token. Check if the token is still valid, very important. So if, remember, we set the refresh token to be valid for 7 days. So after 7 days, this token will not be valid. So the user will need to log in, right? So you could increase the number of days. This is just an example I'm giving. You can set it for 30 days, or I don't know, whichever that works for you. So you extract the metadata from the token, then you check for validity of the token in Redis, right? Then you create a new pair of access and refresh token. So when you do this, that access token you created can now be used to make a request on behalf of the user. So the metadata of the access and refresh token is also saved in our Redis store. So you can find the codes to everything we have explained thus far in my GitHub repository, right? GopherCon JWT repo, you can find it here, and including examples on how you can, further use this. So in conclusion, we've been able to invalidate the JWT at will. You saw when we called that, when we deleted Redis store. We saved the metadata in Redis store that checks the token for validity. 2 tokens were created, the access and the refresh tokens. The access token have a short lifespan of 15 minutes, while the refresh token have about a week. In the event that the access token expires, the refresh token can be used to generate new pairs of access and refresh tokens. Once the JWT metadata is deleted from our Redis store, that JWT is rendered useless. We saw that because it is rendered useless because, yes, the token is still valid, but for when you're using it for a request, we check in our Redis. If our metadata is not found, we bounce back. Let me say bounce back. We reject the request that any user make on behalf of using that token. So we've seen how we can do all this. We've seen how we can use Redis to improve performance, and we can, this whole process work. So thank you very much for tuning in, and I will really accommodate questions. I don't know if you have any questions. So if you have a question, you are free to ask questions. So if you don't have any, thank you very much for your time, and I do appreciate it. Yeah, bye-bye.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm here.
Awesome. Did we have a question? I think so. At least one question. Thank you so much for your time. It was a wonderful talk. I was actually not that familiar with how all of this worked. Only like using it from the user side. So yeah, it was super useful for me at least. And we do have a question. which is what should happen if the refresh token expires?
If the refresh token expires, then no other request can be made on behalf of the user. So the user might need to re-log in again. So that's what I'm saying. You can span your refresh token up to a week. I mean, if what it means is if there is inactivity in your application in a week, I mean, a user might need to re-log in. Am I correct? So I think that's good practice to make the user re-log in after a week. That's why I also said you can make the refresh token expire after 30 days. So it depends on your preference. So it depends on the kind of application you're building. If it's an application that involves a lot of security, you can make it expire after 7 days, after 30 days, or depends on what you want. So if the refresh token
that
expires,
actually makes a lot of
then
sense.
the user will need to be re-authenticated.
And we have seen this a lot. So as users, at least. So if there are no further questions, since we were running very late because of our tech issues, not your fault or anything, I'd like to finish up here and pass on to the next one, I think. Thank you so much again for your time. It was really a wonderful talk.
Yeah, thank you very much.